What's up, SE Nation? Ramsey here. One meeting. So many mistakes. I recently jumped on a call with a customer. He's an existing customer. He already has our products, but he has a new requirement which some of our newer products could help solve. I invited a sales engineer who's trying to ramp up on those products, and I also invited the product manager because it is a new product and not many people have the experience in it. Within the first few minutes, things started to happen. Unravel, some would say. The goal, as usual, was to get the customer to talk about their requirements. When did they come up? Why do they have these new requirements? Who's pushing them to support these requirements? There's a lot of information that we need to get before we offer a solution. Instead, our PM just starts with slides. And the funny part about it is I was on a different call with that same PM a few days before. No slides. So, didn't see that one coming. Surprise, motherfucker. Anyways, it's not a big deal. I wrestled back control of the meeting and I told the PM, hey, let's ask a few questions first before we jump into the slides, if we need to jump into the slides at all. And if you recall, I hate slides. If you don't recall, I hate slides. So we get back, we start asking questions, and we start having a conversation with the customer, and that is what is needed. Soon enough, I see that the PM is using acronyms.
Excuse me, sir. Seeing as how the VP is such a VIP, shouldn't we keep the PC on the QT? Because if it leaks to the VC and end up in MIA, then we'd all be put on KP.
In his defense, these are industry standard acronyms that he uses with most of his customers, and most of his customers would know what they are. But knowing my own customer, he was not very familiar with those acronyms. So again, I had to jump back in and say, hey, Mr. PM, I'm not sure I understand these acronyms. Mr. Customer, do you understand these acronyms, or should we translate them to something that you would understand? It's like, yeah, please translate them so that I can actually be part of this conversation. And then the product manager translated them. He actually said, oh, my bad, I should have asked before we started how familiar you are with these industry acronyms. And we moved on. So it's fine. Again, nothing horrible happened. It's just something we need to pay attention to. And then while having this discussion, the PM decided that, you know what, I'm going to skip the presentation altogether, but I will show the user interface for the customer. And I don't like doing that. It's not something that I want to do on the first meeting. But in the context of this conversation, it seems to be the right thing to do, because we were able to have this conversation as we were talking, as we were discussing. He was showing the customer. It wasn't a demo. It wasn't a harbor tour demo, more importantly. It was more targeted to answer the customer's questions. There weren't any stories shared about how we've helped customers, but it was very targeted to this individual. And I believe it helped us throughout the process. It made things easier for the customer to understand. Otherwise, we would have had to whiteboard, which is hard when it comes to virtual meetings right now, or we would have had to just talk in generalities and not get into details. So I think that went well. Now comes the pièce de résistance, as they say in French, which I am not. I make up my own French, but that's a story for a different time. The sales engineer who was with us on the call and had been silent for most of that meeting, they didn't ask questions, they weren't participating, they were just sitting there and listening, absorbing all this. They are familiar with the product, they're ramping up, but they are familiar with that product, and they're familiar with the product that the customer already uses. They decided to chime in and let the customer know that this product does not do what the old product does exactly the same way, or it doesn't do what the old product does. Basically, it's missing some stuff. That was what my SE chimed in at the time. Now, I imagined Chris White reaching through the screen and shaking my SE very hard, because I wanted to do that. Both myself and the PM interrupted the SE at that time. The PM actually corrected the SE and said that, hey, this is what we can do a lot of the things that you're asking us to do. Sure, it's not on the level of the other product, or not on the granularity of the other product, but based on the questions that we just asked, the discussions that we just had, It does what you need to do. So what the sales engineer actually said didn't help anybody, not us, not the customers. It probably confused the customers a little bit. And in terms of thinking for the future and negotiation, he gave ammunition against us in the sense that, oh, it doesn't do exactly what the other product does. It does what you want, just not what the other product does today. Maybe it's just me, but I could feel the negativity from the SE about the product. He believes that it doesn't do exactly what the other product does, therefore it's not good, except the requirements had changed, so based on the conversation, it was a good product for the customer. The customer was happy with it, the SE was not. And the SE was sharing their negativity towards the product, which also could hurt the sale and could hurt the customer. The SE is mainly worried about the 10% that we cannot do, which the customer didn't even ask for. Anyways, so basically there were a few lessons learned on this call. Some stuff that I already knew before, some stuff that I discovered about myself, and some stuff that I hope would help other people. So here are 6 lessons learned or reinforced, whatever you want. 1, no acronyms allowed. Whether you're in the same industry or not, no acronyms allowed. Industry standards, product standard.
Excuse me, sir. Seeing as how the VP is such a VIP, shouldn't we keep the PC on the QT? Because if it leaks to the VC, it can end up an MIA, and then we'd all be put on KP.
Our job is not to assume that people know acronyms, even industry standards. We should not be using them unless we get approval from the customer that they understand what they mean. And we also, whenever we introduce a new acronym, we have to make sure that they still understand what they mean. And our job is to cater for the least common denominator. For example, if there's 3 people in a room and 2 of them understand the acronyms and 1 don't, and they're all equally important in terms of decision making, then don't use the acronyms. Don't use the acronyms for the 2 and leave the 1 feeling left out and not understanding what's going on in the world. So don't use acronyms. I could have easily used UI earlier in this video, but I actually went back and changed the script to say user interface because some people might not know what UI is, and now you do, hopefully. Lesson 2 is be flexible. I don't like to demo anything in the first call. I like to do a discovery, understand everything, then demo the next call. And then possibly do a proof of concept if the customer agrees. This time around, being flexible helped because right now we just skipped the demo part and we're going straight to proof of concept. And it would have needed the proof of concept anyways. Knowing my customers, they would have requested the proof of concept. So I didn't say like, all right, if we had done the demo, we would have skipped it to proof of concept. That would not have happened. So being flexible and understanding the situation, because not all situations are equal. Some customers want a demo right away, some customers don't. Some products are easy to demo right away, some products aren't. So be flexible based on the product that you're working with, the customers that you're working with, and the people you have on the call. Use them to the best of their abilities. So we were flexible, now we're jumping, we skipped 1 stage. Yay. Number 3, or lesson 3, it's rare to have 100% fit. A lot of times when we talk to customers and we're talking about their requirements, we don't always have 100% fit. Most of the time, there's a few features that they're asking for, there's a few questions that pop up that make them worried, and we have to kind of figure out a workaround or figure out a creative way to solve a problem. In my university in Ontario, if I get a 90% score on a test, hey, that's an A+. So think about it that way. We don't have to solve every single problem. We have to solve the majority of the problem and the most important problems. The competitors probably aren't solving 100% of the problem either. Lesson 4 is don't be negative. Even if you feel like, oh, it might not solve the problem completely, be positive about it. Talk about your product positively. I mean, it's not going to solve all your problems, but I have a good product. It's just maybe not a good fit. Don't feel that you're negative about your product, or don't let other people feel that you're negative about your product. Your product is very good, and you will make sure that you're gonna solve the customer's problem. Otherwise, you won't recommend it. Just be positive about it either way. Lesson 5 is alternatives before now. Find out what the customer needs. Find out if we support it. If we don't support it, can we provide an alternative? Is there a workaround? Is there something we can do that will get the customer what they need? When you do all that and still the answer is no, then you say no. Don't say no and work your way back. Chris White calls this the qualified no. Just don't say no before you qualify what they actually mean by the question, what are the requirements. And that's one major reason why salespeople are afraid to have SEs on a call, because they might screw it up like that. And lesson number 6 is you don't need to talk. If you spend the majority of the time on the call not talking, don't feel the need that you actually have to put in input at a certain point in time. If the salesperson is talking and they have a product manager and expert talking, you as the SE can be taking notes in the background, be active on the call, but you don't have to say anything. If you don't have anything constructive or that will actually help the customer on the call, you don't need to say anything. Don't feel the need, the pressure. No one's gonna hold it against you if you go through the entire call and not say anything, especially if you have nothing of value to say. If you do have something to say, make sure it does add value. I've said this multiple times. It actually was a quote a couple weeks back on the 411 that every time an SE opens their mouth, they're either adding value to a deal or removing value from the deal. So when you're opening your mouth, add value to the deal. By the way, the 411 is a short weekly newsletter that I send out once a week because it's weekly. It's usually on a Friday. If you're interested in receiving that email, make sure you sign up to WeTheSalesEngineers.com. Sign up to the newsletter there. But that's it. What are your thoughts? Have you had a horrible meeting where you've actually had more than 6 lessons learned? Or have you had a meeting where now that you heard these lessons, you think back and say, oh yeah, could have done this, could have done that? Let me know in the comments below. If this video was useful to you, or if you're SE, if you're a salesperson and you have an SE doing those mistakes, send it to them. And did I say subscribe? I said subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. So I'll leave it with that. So last time, subscribe. See you later. Peace out. Bye.